Let's bring back Carol Lee, national political reporter for NBC News. Joining us now also, Ann Guerin, White House correspondent for The Washington Post, Cornell Belcher, Democratic strategist and MSNBC contributor, and Danielle Pletka, an MSNBC contributor and vice president at the American Enterprise Institute. Ann Guerin, the president took the. When did it's everybody has said the president sort of has felt the need that he had to end this thing, and there's speculation it was Stone that did it, speculation that it was frustration over the FAA. What's your reporting tell you?
Well, the air went out of this to the extent that he had any leverage at all, like 2 weeks ago. And it's just been, we've been getting from there to here ever since. The things that happened today, came on top of a building TSA disaster. There was a ground stop and delays at LaGuardia today. Mm-hmm. There were TSA agents calling in sick. Things were falling apart. Things were breaking. And there was a Republican revolt that has been in slow motion for days that picked up a lot of steam last night. And Trump knew he didn't have anywhere to go. And he was told he didn't have anywhere to go he's been being told, by everybody in the White House. He was told by Republicans. He was starting to hear it from his friends and cronies, and people who were stuck on airplanes. He knew he didn't have anywhere to go.
And, Cornell, obviously, this is a gigantic opening shot victory for Nancy Pelosi. I mean, let's not. It was a staring contest saying who's in charge of this relationship and divided government. And apparently he's acceded that she won. Well,
Trump is like the child who has to touch the stove. Everyone warned him that the stove is in fact hot. Whereas McConnell likes to say the second kick of the mule. The second kick of the mule. Yeah. But I want to give you a number, Chuck, that I think is panic number. Trump's reelect now, according to Marquette University poll, is at 39 in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Close to 70% of Wisconsin think that shutting down this for wall is a bad idea. If he's losing that sort of ground in the heartland, it is time to panic, not only for his reelect, but also if, his job approval, there was like 2 points between his job approval and Republican votes and sort of the percentage of the votes in some of these battleground states. If his job approval continues to drop or hold steady, it's a problem for every Republican in a battleground state running.
Danny, I had a Republican very close to the president say, for some reason, he's decided this is his read my lips moment, that he's made Ann Coulter's sort of complaints right when he didn't have to make this his read my lips promise.
Yes, he's apparently not the world's greatest negotiator. I for one, was really shocked because he told me that he was.
You're like losing your voice because of it.
You're stunned. But look, for Trump, the biggest problem is this story isn't over. He hasn't cauterized this wound. He's lost to Nancy Pelosi. He has absolutely strengthened the speaker at a moment that it was great for her to be strengthened in the eyes of a somewhat rebellious caucus. The question is, it's been easy for Nancy to say no for this 35 days. Is she going to be able to say yes? And what's going to happen in 3 weeks?
Carol Lee, they're doing a crazy thing in Congress. They're trying to do this idea of actually following the instructions of how a bill becomes a law. The Senate has a bill and the House has a bill, and then they go to join.
Some legislation.
I guess if you're the president at this point, your only play is to hope that works.
To hope that works, and that if it doesn't, he can blame them and try to do something else. But that's not how deals get done in Washington anymore. So it's hard to imagine that they're going to come up with something. And the other thing that was so remarkable about today is that you have a president who came out in the Rose Garden, which is a place where presidents always take victory laps, and he took credit for saving something that he created. And I think that at this point in his presidency, people see through that, the people that you were just talking about, and then his base is completely unhappy with this. So, and it just gets worse after 3 weeks, and then you get the debt limit. And so where does this go?
Well, riddle me this. If you're a Senate Republican, a congressional Republican, and you stood by him for 35 days in, you said, fine, I'm going to stand by you. And then you go turn around, you take the exact same deal. Oh, by the way, now I've got to answer Roger Stone questions? That's the question I have is, when do congressional Republicans go, you are really making this more difficult.
Well, I mean, the only thing they've got going for them at that point is that they're now in a place that many of their own constituents wanted them to be, and they can kind of breathe a sigh of relief there and stanch the bleeding. But yeah, I mean, Trump broke this, and he's been negotiating against himself for 35 days, and he ends up taking a deal, to your point, that he could have had at the beginning. He had no leverage to begin with, and that means that Republicans don't have a lot of leverage going into this 3-week whatever they're going to do to try to figure out border security. I agree that Nancy Pelosi is in a more difficult spot than she was while Trump owned this entire debacle. But I don't think congressional Republicans have a great deal of leverage to work with now either.
Can I give a quick answer to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Here's my quick answer to that question.
Yeah.
Tell me when the Republican primary date is. That's when Republican, for
each one of these senators,
them to have a challenge, because
that's a whole year.
Because the truth of the matter is, and Chuck, they're still afraid of Trump in the base.
Right.
For as bad as his numbers are collapsing with independent voters, with hardcore base Republicans, he is still their guy, and they will punish Republicans if they go against their guy. It's horrible for general election, but for primaries.
And this, to me, seems to be the riddle, guys, which is you have this hardened, strong minority, somewhere in the 40s, that want a wall. You have a hardened, somewhere in the mid-50s, but not over 60 or 70, that don't want a wall. What does a compromise look like?
Well, there's a great deal to be had here.
You do?
Sorry.
Okay.
They had a great deal 5 years. Yes, there is.
Gang of 8?
To be had. Okay, I'm not saying they're going to have it, but there's a great deal to be had here. He can get his wall money, which is, I hate to say, a drop in the bucket of our federal spending. He can get that. He can give DACA permanent, potentially. And that's something I think the White House is willing to give, and a bunch of other fixes to immigration that could actually advance the ball. And I don't think his base would dump him. The question is, are they going to get there, or are they playing political games?
DACA, they're going to lose their mind.
He was already getting grief from his base when he was thinking about doing that, even on a temporary basis.
By the way, Cornell, if he does offer DACA, though, Democrats are going to take that deal, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I mean, that would lead to a deal.
Absolutely, they would. No, I agree, but there'd be heck to pay with the base if they take that, if he puts DACA out there.
I guess the question is, what does the president do next, Carol? Because there was a scene, and if we have VO of it, when he didn't take his questions. He had the long coat on today, and then he just turned around and walked away, and it was like it was the most visually defeated I've seen him, and he cares about visuals.
Correct.
What is going to be his I've got to show strength moment?
I don't know. I guess I would say, until he actually signs something, I think everybody might want to stick around, because we've seen him before kind of say something and then backtrack.
That could be why Pelosi and Schumer didn't overly spike the football today. Yeah.
He really doesn't like the coverage. It's not a lock with this president.
Right.
Hey, President, you won. You won today.
don't go shut down the government. Yeah.
Dan Coulter already called him a wimp.
Yeah, I'm sure that went over well. All right. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.